I know you already know a lot about this bill. I want to lay it out to you with 4 numbers that I'd like you to remember. 800 million, 3, 2021, and 295,000. I think that if you understand the significance of these 4 numbers, you will support this legislation. The first number is 800 million. $800 million is the amount of federal stimulus money this bill will inject in the Texas economy right now. We get $555 million, as you know, from accepting the federal stimulus money by expanding our unemployment eligibility requirements. This bill will contain an amendment that Representative Kent is going to offer that will add to that $550 million by triggering our acceptance of an additional up to $400 million, somewhere between $200 and $400 million, for extended eligibility that the state of Texas qualified for when our unemployment rate went above 6.5% for 3 consecutive months last month. The exact amount of that money that will be triggered by Representative Kent's amendment is a function of how high our unemployment remains and for how long. But the Workforce Commission estimates that it could be as much as $400 to $450 million. It is almost assuredly at least $180 million. So we're roughly estimating that this bill will bring to the state of Texas $800 million at a cost to the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund of $35 million a year. You've probably heard a higher number than that because the specific things we have to do to trigger our conformance with federal law to receive the stimulus money have a total cost in the aggregate of nearly $80 million a year. But we are also going to adopt measures that save money for the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund and save another $40 to $45 million a year. The net effect of passing this legislation is $800 million right now at a net cost of $35 million a year. We are not allowed by federal law to sunset the expanded eligibility in this bill. We tried to do that and we got guidance from the feds. They won't accept that. But at the same time, we got explicit guidance from the feds that we may repeal the expanded eligibility in the future. So that $35 million a year cost in the out years is also repealable. So you are going to be weighing $800 million of right now money against an extended cost of $35 million a year that we can repeal. The second number, in addition to $800 million, the second number I want you to remember is the number 3. You have had the opportunity to consider these expanded eligibility criteria in previous sessions, and the legislature has not adopted them. The difference is that this session, we get $550 million of stimulus money if we adopt them, while our economy is in pain, while our employers are operating on thin margins. And the effect of accepting that $555 million in stimulus money right now is to reduce the amount by which we have to raise unemployment insurance taxes by a significant amount. If we don't repeal the expanded eligibility in the out years, the net cost of that expanded eligibility under this bill is $35 million a year. And the tax savings of the $555 million right now, factoring in the time value of that money, the tax savings is 3 times greater for the next 4 years than the tax costs in the out years. To repeat, many of you have seen a chart that the Workforce Commission and the Governor's Office have distributed showing a delta between the effective tax rate on the average tax rate on businesses, where it is clearly, and everybody stipulates, that the tax rate on businesses is lower for the next 4 years if we accept the money than if we don't. Everyone agrees to that fact. And then they show you that there is a crossing point, an inflection point, where the average tax rate on businesses, if we don't repeal the expanded eligibility, the average tax rate on businesses is higher in the out years. What's important, and the reason I want you to remember the number 3, is that the difference between the average tax rate in the next 4 years is 3 times greater than the difference in the average tax rate in the out years if we fail to repeal the expanded benefits. And remember that 3 times greater tax increase over the next 4 years is hitting businesses at a time when they are in distress, at a time when the economy is contracting and when businesses are operating on the thinnest of margins, and when that tax benefit will benefit them the most. The third number I want you to remember is the year 2021. 2021 is the year in which the net effect of accepting the stimulus money and expanding benefits, if we don't repeal those benefits, will start to have a net cumulative cost to employers. Taking this $555 million and expanding benefits as required to accept the money pays for itself through the year 2021. And the last number that I want you to remember is 295,000. 295,000 is the number of Texans currently drawing unemployment insurance benefits. We are all here to serve our constituents, and those 295,000 are your constituents, every one of your districts. This is not a bill that affects different parts of the state disparately, because the unemployment problem we have today is spread broadly throughout every district in this state. And I know that every member here wants to do right by those 295,000 unemployed Texans. And you know as much as I do that one moment and then I'll yield, that the vast majority of those constituents are looking for work and want to work. But you also know that in a contracting economy, it is difficult for them to find jobs. And those 295,000 Texans are what this bill is about. I don't think there is a single person on this floor who doesn't want to help those folks. And I understand that the disagreements we may have about this bill are a disagreement about means, not about ends. But if you understand the numbers, the short-term impact on saving employers money on their tax bills, the long-term ability to repeal these provisions if the costs become too burdensome on businesses in the future, the fact that the gap in the tax burden is 3 times greater in the near term during the recession in terms of savings from accepting this money than the out-year costs, and the fact that the bill pays for itself through the year 2021. With all of those factors in mind, I believe the business case for accepting this $800 million in federal money is very compelling, whether you're a conservative, whether you are liberal, or whether you are in the middle. With that, I'd be happy to yield to Mr. Desautels for questions, and in doing so to recognize the fact that he's been working on this issue not just this session, but for many sessions before now, and want to acknowledge his hard work on this.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Desautels for a purpose.